Over 24 hours ago, US President Donald Trump claimed that he is going to impose a 25% tariff on India along with additional penalties for its bilateral trade with Russia. So does this mean that the nearly 30 occasions where he claimed that India agreed to a ceasefire because of an impending trade deal was baseless? Because why would the US President threaten to slap such high tariffs if the trade deal was going to be signed? Isn't this in itself a hint that there was never any trade on the table or a mediation driven by trade talks on the table to stop Operation Sindoor, and his repeated comments linking the two was an attempt to arm twist India only in order to get a better deal? Food for thought perhaps for the opposition, who've been amplifying Trump's rhetoric inside and outside Parliament.
India was the highest, or just about the highest tariff nation in the world, and one of the highest, 100 points, 150 points or percentages. So India was one of the highest in the world. They had won 175%. And higher than that. We're negotiating with India right now. It's also BRICS. You know, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. It's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade. This trade situation, it's the deficit. We had a tremendous deficit. So, as you know, Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us.
Well, Trump being Trump, he didn't just stop there. In a scathing social media post which was made around 9:30 a.m. on Thursday morning, Trump said, "I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care." We now need to take a pause here and actually look at whether what the US president is saying is correct or not. Because remember, during his first term, he actually met Prime Minister Modi in June 2017 at the White House and commended him for the Indian economy. In his own words, he said, "I am thrilled to salute you and the Indian people for all that you are accomplishing together. Your accomplishments have been vast. India has been the fastest growing economy in the world. We hope we are going to be catching you very soon in terms of percentage increase. I have to tell you that we are working on it." So what changed between 2017 and 2025? Well, practically nothing. As per the IMF, in 2017, India's growth rate was 6.8%. 8 years later, in 2025, India's GDP growth is 6.5%, and we are still the fastest growing major economy in the world. But in a startling political twist, the leader of opposition once again echoed US President Donald Trump, this time not on diplomacy, but on the state of India's economy. After lending his weight on Trump's controversial mediation claim, he went a step further, agreeing with Trump's remark about the Indian economy being dead. That's correct. The leader of opposition in India's parliament endorsing a foreign leader's comment, which is clearly attempted to arm twist India, to browbeat India, and saying that our economy is dead. But he seems to have very few backers, as some within his own party and even his allies don't agree. They in fact have gone ahead and defended the government, calling out Trump for his bullying.
Trump is saying Indian economy is a dead economy.
Yes, he's right. I mean, everybody knows this, except the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. Everybody knows that the Indian economy is a dead economy. I'm glad that President Trump has stated a fact. Trump अब बोल रहा है कि मैं 25% टैरिफ लगाऊंगा. आपने अपने आप से ये सवाल पूछा कि नरेंद्र मोदी जी जवाब क्यों नहीं दे पा रहे? पूछा है? क्यों? एक्चुअल रीजन क्या है? क्या लगता है आपको? कंट्रोल किसके हाथ में है? बात समझिए.
ट्रंप का ये कहना है कि भारत और रूस की इकोनॉमी डेड है, एकदम गलत बात है. भारत की इकोनॉमी डेड नहीं. जो हमने आर्थिक सुधार किए जब नरसिम्हा राव जी और मनमोहन सिंह जी थे, उसके बाद उस आर्थिक सुधारों को आगे वाजपेयी जी ने भी बढ़ाया, और उसके बाद मनमोहन सिंह जी ने 10 साल में जो मजबूती प्रदान की, और उसके बाद वर्तमान सरकार ने भी जिसमें काम बढ़ाया, तो हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति कहीं से भी कमजोर नहीं है।
If the worst comes to the worst, we will have to diversify more out of the American market into other markets if we can't compete in America. We are not without options. I mean, I think we have to understand, we want and value the relationship with America, but if America is completely unreasonable in their demands, we will have to go elsewhere. If a good deal is not possible, we may have to walk away.
Now, Donald Trump has on multiple occasions made tall claims, just like the claim on mediating in Operation Sindoor to effect a ceasefire, and eventually he has been exposed to the world. The instances are many. Just to put some of them on record, he had recently threatened to slap 60% tariff on China, who flexed their muscle, leading to Trump backing off and extending the deadline for negotiations. In June, after he bombed the Iranian nuclear sites, he claimed that the facilities have been totally obliterated, but later it became quite apparent that 400 kgs of weapons-grade uranium still remains unaccounted for. Let's move on to Ukraine. When he took over the presidency, he said that Zelensky is a strong leader with whom he can deal. But months later, he got involved in a very public slanging match in front of rolling cameras right in the middle of the Oval Office. Trump also famously had claimed that he can end the Russia-Ukraine war since he can get a deal done with Vladimir Putin. In fact, he was rebuffed and put in his place, with Putin claiming that a deal can only be done between Ukraine and Russia without America's involvement. In this backdrop of Trump's flip-flops, the opposition has been playing up his comments on mediation in a dramatic intervention during the Lok Sabha debate on 29th of July. Rahul Gandhi actually challenged the Prime Minister to publicly call Trump a liar inside the House, and it didn't stop there. Next day, in the Parliament premises, he also echoed Trump's claim that India is under pressure to sign a trade deal. His comments may have helped the Americans and built pressure on the government, which was trying to negotiate a tough deal. Clearly, even on national issues, it seems there is no common ground for convergence.
Donald Trump has said 29 times. 29 times he said, 29 बार उन्होंने बोला कि भैया मैंने सीज फायर करवाया। अच्छा, अगर वो झूठ बोल रहे हैं तो अपने भाषण में यहां प्रधानमंत्री कह दें कि वो झूठ बोल रहे हैं। यहां पे अगर दम है तो यहां पे प्रधानमंत्री बोल दे कि ट्रंप झूठ बोल रहे हैं। If he has the courage, if he has the courage of Indira Gandhi, let him say here, that Donald Trump, you're a liar.
दुनिया के किसी भी नेता ने भारत के ऑपरेशन रोकने के लिए नहीं कहा। 9 तारीख को रात को अमेरिका के उपराष्ट्रपति जी ने मुझसे बात करने का प्रयास किया। वो घंटे भर कोशिश कर रहे थे, लेकिन मेरी सेना के साथ मीटिंग चल रही थी, तो मैंने उनका फोन उठा नहीं पाया। बाद में मैंने उनको कॉल बैक किया। मैंने कहा कि आपका फोन था, 3-4 बार आपका फोन आ गया, क्या है? तो अमेरिका के उपराष्ट्रपति जी ने मुझे फोन पे बताया कि पाकिस्तान बहुत बड़ा हमला करने वाला है, ये उन्होंने मुझे बताया। मेरा जो जवाब था, जिनको समझ नहीं आता है उनको तो नहीं आएगा। मेरा जवाब था, अगर पाकिस्तान का ये इरादा है तो उसे बहुत महंगा पड़ेगा।
By the way, there have been 19 instances where India's military, its political leadership, its external affairs ministry have all laid down the line on exactly how the ceasefire was achieved. They have said it in so many words. In fact, on the first day itself, it was made clear by Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri that the 2 DGMOs spoke, and that is when the ceasefire was done. That is when a pause was done. The very next day, and let's read out a list of exactly who said what at what time. On the 10th of May, Vikram Misri made the announcement. On the 11th of May, no politician but the DGMO, General Ghai, made it very clear that he was called by his Pakistani counterpart, who asked for a cessation of all military activities on land and in air, and that is where India put a pause. So you may not want to believe the Modi government, you may not want to believe the External Affairs Minister, but remember, it was the Indian DGMO who said in as many words on the 11th of May itself that DGMO level talks led to the ceasefire. 12th of May, the Prime Minister said it in his address to the nation. May 13, MEA spokesperson said it. May 16, the External Affairs Ministry said it. May 19, again the Foreign Secretary reiterated it. May 22, the MEA said it in its PC. 22nd of May, the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar again said it. On the 29th of May, the MEA said it. The June 18, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said it. 1st of July, S. Jaishankar said it. July 17, MEA said it. July 23, S. Jaishankar said it. 25th of July, again the External Affairs Ministry said it, and then on the 28th, 29th and 30th of July, it was repeated again and again inside the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha that DGMOs of India and Pakistan spoke, and on the request of Pakistan's DGMO, a pause was done by India. Now, the opposition can disagree with the government, question the Prime Minister, but why discredit the integrity of India's armed forces and diplomatic institutions by parroting the claims of a foreign leader whose relationship with truth is at best negotiable? And this is why Donald Trump cannot be trusted entirely. In 2019, he claimed that Prime Minister Modi asked him to mediate on Kashmir during a G20 summit. India officially denied it, saying that no such request was ever made. Trump has a habit of inserting himself into global crisis and claiming that he solved it. Case in point is the so-called peace brokered between North and South Korea. He's known for spreading misinformation and claiming things that never happened. He famously claimed that Ukraine started the war with Russia, but in reality, it was Russia that invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea in 2014, followed by a full-scale invasion in 22. Just today, he has branded the Federal Reserve Chair and equivalent to RBI Chairman too late, too stupid and too political over the Fed's repeated refusal to cut interest rates as rapidly or as deeply as Trump would like. When he is ranting, he doesn't spare anyone. His desperation in not seeing India wilt under pressure has led him to pick up a sensitive issue that he knows will irk the Indian establishment the most: Pakistan. On Truth Social, he posted that he has signed a trade deal with Pakistan and the US is working closely with them to develop their massive oil reserves. And here's the punchline: who knows, maybe they, which is Pakistan, will be selling oil to India someday. We will not get into Pakistan's hidden oil reserves, but why did Trump need to needle India? He is using strategic rivalries in the subcontinent to exert pressure on India. He's also signaling US willingness to enhance Pakistan's economic capacity and regional clout if India doesn't play ball. It is also an attempt to expand America's influence in South Asia and present himself as the big boss for domestic politics. Importantly, he is attempting to undercut India's negotiating position by ramping up economic and diplomatic pressure. India's response stands in marked contrast to Trump's combative populist rhetoric. Instead of matching hyperbole with hyperbole, India instead signaled its intent to defend its sovereign economic interests through process, negotiation and adherence to global norms.
The government attaches the utmost importance to protecting and promoting the welfare of our farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, exporters, MSMEs, and all sections of industry. We will take all necessary steps to secure and advance our national interests. Today, international institutions and economists see India as the bright spot in the global economy. India is contributing to almost 16% of global growth. Mr. Chair.
The Commerce Minister's statement in Parliament is in line with the statement that was released on Wednesday evening that promotes an India First policy. Modi government clarified that any trade decision will not come at the expense of domestic constituents like farmers, entrepreneurs and MSMEs. Remember, Trump wants to flood India with its excess production of soya bean, corn and milk. As per an SBI research report, if India opens up its dairy sector, then total revenue losses would be in excess of 1.8 lakh crore rupees. This should be a key issue for the opposition to raise its voice against. But surprise, surprise, no criticism for Trump yet for endangering our domestic markets and in particular farmers. And that brings us back to where we started. Trump's rant about the Indian economy being dead. Just 2 days ago, the International Monetary Fund revised upwards its forecast for India's economic growth to 6.4% for both 2025 and 2026, reaffirming India's position as the world's fastest growing major economy. Earlier, in its April 2025 World Economic Outlook, IMF had projected India's GDP growth at 6.2% for 2025 and 6.3% for the next year. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the US, which is expected to grow by 1.9% in 2025 and 2% in 2026, as per a new report by Yale University. It warns that Trump's proposed high tariffs for allies such as India and South Korea will actually end up costing Americans dearly. This will lead to a surge in household expenses and a slowdown in economic growth. If tariffs persist, they will end up reducing America's GDP growth by 0.5 percentage points in 2025-26 and result in as many as 5 lakh job losses by the end of this year. Meanwhile, Rahul Gandhi's endorsement of Donald Trump's dead economy comment naturally invites scrutiny of how the Indian economy actually performed under the previous government that was led by his party, the Congress. The UPA struggled to convert high growth into job creation. Growth slumped to under 5% in 2012 and 2013, triggering a balance of payments crisis and classifying India among the so-called fragile 5 economies by 2013. There was high GDP growth, but with double-digit food inflation, especially in UPA 2. This severely impacted the middle and lower income groups. Now, you decide if India's economy is dead or if the opposition is setting a dangerous precedent where political rivalries override national interest. To use Trump's tariff rant as evidence of India's global failure is not critique. It's a risk lending undue legitimacy to a leader who is driven by personal politics, not policy precision.
On this special edition of the Brandwalas, we get you the best of the best. This is the best of Brandwalas from the auto sector. From power-packed engines